Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Late Night Show with Dr. Kojo. I am your host, Kojo, checking in from what was a sunny day here in Los Angeles, California. We're going to talk about three things that worsen your mental health, all right? Number one, let's get into it, and then let me explain. Lack of resources, right? We're talking about finances, and we're talking about housing. I can only speak for the United States of America because I live in America, right? I don't know how things work in the UK with the NHS, or I don't know how things work in Australia or, outside the US, but in the United States, a lot of things come down to the haves and the have-nots, right? Either you have it or either you don't, right? And if you have, a lot of money or disposable income, the more resources you have, the better your healthcare outcomes are. And I hate to say that, but it's the truth. I don't want to sit up here and lie to you all. And there's actually a study that I saw not too long ago, and I wasn't surprised by it. But in the study, they were saying that they were looking at people who were experiencing depression, right? Like major depressive disorder. So they were looking at people who had been experiencing depression, and the study found out, right, that people who did not have, adequate housing, right, and adequate resources in the form of money, they struggled to bounce back from depression, right? Those who had resources actually did better. So where I took from that was, oh wow, so me not having resources and being depressed means that I may stay depressed longer because I don't have the resources, right? So that's why we do these live streams. That's why we look for interesting ways to put out the information, right? Whether it's a short film that I'm putting out or it's a real, like we have to, as healthcare providers, I believe that it's our duty, those of us who enjoy using the internet, it's our duty to disseminate the information, put it out there, because not having resources, not having money, not having adequate housing, not having these things, it puts you behind the eight ball. Like you just don't stand as good a chance as somebody who has those resources, right? So how do we make things more equitable, right? And, at least on my end, talking about it, I would say is a good first step. So I'm dropping in the second thing that is worsen your mental health, right? Isolation. Isolation can worsen your mental health, right? Like it's not good to be by yourself like all the time, right? Like we do need time to be by ourselves and to, to de-stress, relax, and just, shoot the breeze and just relax, right? But being by yourself for long periods of time is not a healthy thing. As human beings, we're social beings. We're supposed to be with other people, right? And even if you're not with anybody physically, I do believe that like a live stream like this is a social type of activity, right? You got 417 people watching live right now, not including the thousands of people who will watch after the fact, right? So, but it is different when you're on live, because like if you're watching like right now, like we're actually like right here present in this moment on this live stream, right? So the third thing that can worsen your mental health is unresolved trauma. This is important for a couple of reasons. Let's start with childhood, right? When we were kids, all of us, when we were kids, certain things happened to us during our formative years that shaped us and helped us become the people that we are, right? Some amazing things happened to us, some okay things, and some traumatic things, right? The traumatic things that happened to us, depending on what it was and depending on what happened to you, it's difficult to talk about those things, right? Because depending on the nature of what happened, it might be weird sharing it with somebody else, right? But when you don't share that stuff with like a therapist or, you confide in a friend, when you don't talk about those things, the trauma follows you like a shadow, right? Your shadow never really leaves. Like you can never outrun your shadow. I feel like trauma is the same way, right? If you've been through significant trauma as a child, sometimes you forget that you're traumatized until you become an adult, and then you're in a relationship and you realize that you have a hard time standing up for yourself, or you have a hard time, speaking up and enforcing boundaries because as a child, you weren't given a safe space to talk or express yourself, or you didn't even know that you had a say in the matter because maybe your parents were like, oh, we're the parents and you're the kid, or maybe it was emotional abuse or physical abuse or sexual abuse. All of these things, when you don't work through it, can really damage your mental health. And that's why, we say therapy is helpful, but just also a community, because you don't want to feel like you're the only person going through a certain thing, right? If you're in a circle of people, right, and you've gone through, let's say, emotional abuse, right? I post the gaslighting videos, right? And some of those you all have really connected with it. If you've been through emotional abuse and gaslighting, right, and you don't have any friends that are talking about it, right, and you talk to your friends, you're like, hey, have you ever been in a relationship where, your partner made you question everything, and you felt like you were stupid, or you felt like you couldn't remember things, or you just felt like a useless human being? If you tell it to your friends and your friends are like, I don't know what you're talking about, you're going to feel like you're the only person who's going through that thing. And, there's nothing worse. Well, just worse things. But going through something all by yourself or feeling like you have to is an awful feeling. So that's why community is important. That's why therapy is important. That's why sharing experiences are important. That's why entertainers are important, right? When your favorite athlete or whoever comes out and says, "Oh, I've been struggling with body dysmorphia since I was 17," then you're like, "Oh my gosh, so and so was so pretty. I didn't know this person struggled with it," but it makes you feel a little less alone, right? So that's why we talk about isolation and how that can be harmful. But the same way, the unresolved trauma, it's good to talk about things so you can get through it, right? Because I don't want the trauma to follow you like a shadow for the rest of your life. Because like right now we're in the present moment, right? It's October 20th, Thursday, unless you're in like the Philippines and it's Friday. But regardless of the matter, we're in the present right now, right? And we're responsible for our lives in the future. So we have to figure out how can we set ourselves up for success. And one good way to do that is by talking and working through trauma, especially if you're somebody if you're not married right now. I'm not married. I hope to be married one day. My little joke is that I need a wife with ADHD who understands what I'm going through, who can also show up late to places like me. But like, I do know that, and that's why you have marriage counseling and therapy and things like that. No, but I do know that if you're single and you want to enter into a relationship, like therapy is, I can't call it mandatory because I can't tell you what to do, but it's a really good idea. It'll help you learn yourself better. And then you can explain to your partner, hey, I have ADHD, so this is why I get grumpy on some days, or this is why I get moody, or a boom, 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 or I get depressed, so I need help cleaning the house, right? It's good to know yourself. With unresolved trauma, being able to work through it, you're going to liberate yourself of a lot of dead weight that you're carrying on your back for no reason. Like, you don't have to carry all that dead weight, right? And until people came along and told me, hey, Kojo, you don't have to like put this all on your back. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I don't. And like, I feel lighter on my feet.